Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular but also instructive gameplay by the latest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 16. Today we see the fish battling it out against another top engine Seer in an amazing Tarrasch variation of the French defense, and this game is really I think great for those who have trouble maybe to play against the French defense, who are bothered by this annoying setup in the beginning. Many of us I think had a tough time to beat the French defense, but I think you can apply many of this beautiful but also spectacular methods here introduced to us by Stockfish 16. So let's dive into the game with the white pieces. Stockfish open with the move e4. Seer's response was e6. The French, we have now the move d4, normal development, and now comes the move d5. Now we have the Tarrasch variation with the move knight to d2, knight to f6, and after move e5, we have an attack against the knight, and this becomes now the closed setup of the Tarrasch variation of the French defense. We have knight to d7, we have bishop to d3, developing move here by the fish, c5, counterattack of course here on the queen side. That's the most important progressive plan for black, of course, putting more pressure on this side of the board. White is of course attacking this side of the board because we have talked about this blocked out pawn structures many times. Both players, both engines have now their direction of the attack. c3, Stockfish fixes the structure around the square d4, knight to c6, further attack against the pawn on d4, and now knight to e2. This move I really like because this move supports the pawn on d4 further, but it doesn't take away the natural square for the knight here on f3. Now we can also play, for instance, if something like queen to b6 happens, then you still have the opportunity to play this other knight on f3 and still have a great protection of the d4 square. So you're keeping your structure healthy, you're keeping your main advantage, your advanced e5 pawn still in the continuation of the game, and you have then great attacking chances on this side of the board. Still, it would be very risky also for black to castle maybe out of white's attack because the c file is open, so it will be really I think a suicide if black castles queenside. So this is a good method to play the move knight to e2, which gives you, as I said, the flexibility to play with your other knight on f3 and have a nice grip around the square d4. Here in the continuation, bishop to e7 was played by the Seer chess engine. Stockfish continues with castling, and now b6. We have knight to f3, a great move here by the fish, as I said, simply having really great control of this most important square. Now comes a5. This move comes with the idea that black wants to play bishop to a6, because many times in his blocked out pawn structures you see the light square bishop. I've talked about it many times. It's simply the worst minor piece of black. So that's why with this method, with this b6 e5 progress, black is trying to play bishop to a6, simply getting rid of the bad piece and trading off actually for a good white's minor piece, because actually white's light square bishop is simply the best minor piece of the board. It would be, I think, a good trade for black to give up the worst piece for opponent's best piece. But Stockfish plays now an interesting choice, knight to f4, and that's the beauty about this line that Stockfish is preparing here. Now bishop to a6 immediately would be very risky. It becomes a little bit complicated. This wasn't played in the game, but as usual I wanted to of course dive into more opening theory. After bishop to a6, things are very messy here. Then actually we can take bishop takes a6. As I said, this wasn't played in the game, but it's really interesting line. And rook takes a6 of course has to be played, and now because you didn't castle, now c4 is the breaking method here. Let's see now options. For instance, if you play c takes d4, then we simply play the c takes d5. You can of course pick up the pawn here on e5, but now look at this. After queen to e2, both of these pieces are lined up, and one piece will be taken, so it's game over here already for black. So here after move c takes d5, what you could play of course is e takes d5, but then white is breaking and entering with the move e6, and there's simply no good way to defend this. The king is stuck here, you have to move, then we pick up the pawn, the king will not castle, rook to e1 will happen. We have a still a great attacking formation, so it's simply not working. So here after move c4, what you could also try is here the move d takes c4, but then we continue with d5 anyway after something like e takes d5, queen to d5 could happen, and now after knight to e5, knight to e5, knight takes queen takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, but now rook to e1 is simply the winning game. You have to step back now with your knight, and knight to c7 is simply winning the game on spot. Would simply grab the rook, although probably black will eventually also take out the knight here. The knight doesn't have any more good escape routes, but will simply give it up for a pawn, and with up the exchange, I think this must be a winning continuation here for white. Really spectacular. Already traps are possible after the early bishop to a6, and surprisingly, believe me or not, many times this line has been played. Also in the Lichess database. When I analyze now the games at home, I use also the Lichess database because it's very interesting to see how also regular players are trying it out in the French defense, of course, also in some other openings. So use it sometimes, the Lichess database. You see also cool ideas, maybe some ideas that have not been played by, I don't know, by Garry Kasparov, Magnus Carlsen, all of the best players in chess history. So in the Lichess database, there are really great games. You can be really surprised how many progressive ideas regular players are having. So in my opinion, also really important database, important knowledge that you can get out of the Lichess database. So here, as I said, let's go back. Here after knight to f4, as I said, bishop to a6 would be very risky. So that's why here the Seer engine first of all calls. Now Stockfish plays rook to e1, and now finally bishop to a6. Again with the idea, as we said in the beginning, to trade off the worst minor piece on the board against white's best minor piece on the board. But now Stockfish is not allowing that. Now it would be maybe very risky to trade it off. Now the whole c4 plan is not so dangerous anymore because the king is not stuck anymore in the center of the board. So Stockfish simply retreated to b1. Keeps now, of course, the direction of the attack against the pawn on h7, but look at this: knight on f4, knight on f3, bishop on c1. These are monsters that are coming in a couple more moves into the game for sure, and the king is basically naked here. The problem always in these types of structures for black is that with the move e5 in the beginning, we have of course deflected the knight from f6 from the defense also of the square h7. So it's very hard now to defend this position. Here rook to c8 was played by Seer, simply continuing normal development, and now a very important move. And this move, I will even call it a novelty, because even if you check out now the Lichess database, this move has never been played in chess history. But actually, when we think about it harder, this move really makes sense. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now simply the best progressive idea here for white. Let's practice some strategy. Let's practice also some principles here, because the next move that will come now is I think a very principled move, a very important move that you have to recognize in your own games. So as I said, take your time, think about this position. Imagine this was one of your positions that you play maybe in a classical game. What would you do now in this particular position? Okay. As I said, the next move is really a principled move, and there is a certain principle in chess that says if you don't gain any further better activity with your minor pieces or with any pieces, then probably the next move is a good pawn move. So when we watch now this position, I think here all of the minor pieces have gained almost their maximum activity. The only improvement maybe of the pieces I see maybe by playing the move knight to h5, but it seems a little bit slow, or maybe to play rook to e3. When I talked about this position at home, I thought, okay, these are maybe the only progressive ideas that you can play. So probably we can say there's simply no really good improvement of minor pieces or any pieces at all. So that's why the next move should be really a pawn move, and that's exactly what happens. Stockfish plays now the beautiful h4 move, a move that has not been played so far in chess history, as I said, also not in the Lichess database, but this move is really brilliant. It's of course sacrificing a pawn, but it gives you here really great attacking chances, because we want to weaken the structure further. We want to play h5, h6, somehow mess up further the pawn structure in front of the king. So let's see now what happens, for instance, if you try here b5 or something. Then we simply play queen to d3. You blocked out here your light square bishop. Now the queen is coming active into the game. Look at this. You're trying maybe g6, h5. This wasn't played in the game, but I wanted to show you what would have happened if you simply ignored this move h4. Really, really powerful move. After h4, c takes d4, then you have to bring somehow the queen into the defense, maybe somehow to protect the g6 square. And now with bishop to d8, look at this. White is simply getting with all of these pieces in the attack. So of course, black doesn't have to play the game like this, but I wanted to show you how this piece activity, again, will cause many, many problems in black's camp. This is a devastating position, e6 weak, g6 weak, so game over. So that's why I move h4 here. The Seer engine takes out now the pawn, but Stockfish has now beautiful compensation with the move g3, and the compensation is of course the open h file. Now Stockfish is trying king to g2, rook to h1, and this is now a devastating attack. So as I said, you see white never touched these pieces that were good already. In order to improve the position, Stockfish used now a different plan how to include the rook on the h file. Very nice, spectacular idea here by the fish. So sacrifice the pawn. Okay, who cares about the pawn? King to g2, rook to h1 is now very great method. So c takes d4 by the Seer engine. Seer is trying somehow to defend this position. Look what happens if you don't play g6. Here in the game, g6 was played by Seer. If you, let's see again, maybe a normal move, rook to e8, with the idea maybe to get the knight on f8, protecting the h7 square. It's simply too slow, this kind of a defense. Look at this. Bishop takes h7 immediately is simply winning the game. Rook to h1, you have to play king to g8. Rook to h3, now queen to h1. Building a beautiful queen and rook battery on the h file. You have to bring even the bishop into the defense. Now we simply pick it up, and with this dark square problems, I guarantee you will not have fun defending this position. This is, I think, in top engine level, simply undefendable. Very wild stuff. So you see, after move c takes d4, g6 has to be played in order to prevent this Greek tactic here by white. After move g6, Stockfish continues, of course, with rook to h1 anyway. Queen to c7, knight to h3, and now Stockfish will play one of the greatest maneuvers that I've seen in my life. Look at this, how the Stockfish will reshuffle the pieces in order to get even a better, a more spectacular, a more aggressive attacking formation. After knight to h3, we have rooks from f to e8, knight to f4. Again, it would be very risky maybe to give up here the bishop for a knight, because you have already the dark square weaknesses. I think you'll not be able to defend as the queen will come into the game. The queen will sneak in maybe on the square h6. So I think a messed up game again here for black. After knight to, from h to g5, knight to f8, bishop to f4, h5 here by the Seer engine. If you play something like knight to b4, if you don't play this move h5, then of course rook to h6 is going to happen, and now followed with queen to h1. There's simply no good defense against this attack on the h file, so you have to block it out with the move h5. But this move h5 creates, of course, new weaknesses. Stockfish is always playing a tiny little threat in order to provoke new structural weaknesses in your position. Really, again, a nice progressive plan. a4, here we have queen to d8, and now knight to h3, knight to d7, bishop to f4, and now knight to f4. Stockfish includes now this knight in the most powerful way again into the game, and now when Stockfish provokes some weaknesses, Stockfish built basically the same attacking formation, or at least a similar one, but now it's a different story. When the pawn was on h7, then this was, I would say, still a somehow healthy structure in front of black's king. But now when you have made progress with move h5, obviously the whole I think defense will probably collapse around the square g6. So here Seer had it enough, tried to somehow to defend this position with knight to e5. We have knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and now here again you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. Pause the video and try to see now really the most aggressive way. White moves and wins the game. What would you do now in this particular position? Again, take your time. We have now practiced some strategy with this beautiful pawn sacrifice and with this idea to get the rook on the h file, but let's practice now some tactics. What's now simply the best move here for white? Okay, Stockfish played here a brilliant knight takes g6, simply sacrifice the knight. Let's see what happens if you play knight takes g6. In the game, f takes g6 was played, but let's see. If you play knight takes g6, then queen to h5 is going to happen. You have to play knight to h4 in order to stop somehow here the attack on the h file, rook to h4, you play bishop to h4, and now g takes h4. And there's simply no good way. You can maybe include the queen into defense. Black is of course up the exchange, but still, look at this. With bishop to h6, bishop to a6, you can play maybe somehow trying to get this bishop into the game, but now rook to a3 is winning the game. Rook to a3 followed with rook to g3, I think, in the next couple moves. You can resign. So in the game, knight takes g6 was played. Now f takes g6 by Seer. Stockfish plays now bishop takes g6. Doesn't want to even take out the knight. Who cares about the knight? Taking now the knight would be dangerous because of d5, pardon me, d4, liberating the long diagonal for the light square bishop. Stockfish sacrificed the new piece. We have knight takes g6, and as I said, that's now the issue. You have played this h5 move that Stockfish provoked, and now you don't have any more the support of the knight on g6 here. After move queen to h5, knight to h4 was again played by the Seer chess engine, as we have seen previously. Rook to h4 is simply winning the game, and after bishop to h4, rook to h1, in this particular position, the Seer engine resigns. So let's see now options. For instance, if you try bishop to f6 to bring a new defender into the game, then we simply deliver a couple of checks, and you have to here for fate you have here not anymore any defensive chances here by black. So here after rook to h1, what you could play, maybe queen to e7, trying again to somehow get a new defender into the game. But now obviously rook to h4, you're trying maybe to play something like this. We play bishop to h6, rook to g4, queen to e5, and the game would be over. Really, really wild stuff. As I said, after move rook to h1, in this particular position, the Seer engine resigned. So great game by the fish. Interesting line in the beginning. I think this was also very instructive, first of all, with this line in the first Tarrasch variation of the French defense. Maybe this is useful for you. Maybe this could be one of your methods in your preparation against the French. Has been played many times, also in top GM level. So in my opinion, really an epic game worth to study here by Stockfish 16. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Brutal again, attack by the fish, especially with this beautiful novelty, as I said, h4. Really interesting line. Giving up the piece, giving up the pawn just in order to open the h file. This is really well, very progressive plan. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see more beautiful and spectacular chess games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of the playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.